You're listening to the VTZone.com's weekly Scoutcast. Everything Hokies. And now here's publisher Jason Stamm.
Welcome to another edition of the VTZone.com Scoutcast. I am publisher Jason Stamm, coming to you on Friday, July 8th. We're still a little bit away from football season, but we still got, or even the start of camp here, less than a month away now, but still lots going on. I will say Doug Bowman and Derek Hopkins, my usual two cohorts here, couldn't join us this week, so I think I did pretty well in finding a substitute for him here, our editor, Max Esterhuizen. Max, how's everything going?
It's going pretty well. I'm glad I could come up off the bench for you today.
I know. I made a call to the bullpen, so I think we've got the closer in here right now.
I'm glad I can be here, though.
Max, how was your 4th of July, man? I know it was a little rainy here in the New River Valley, but how was your holiday?
It was good. I went down to North Carolina to be with my family. The first Friday and Saturday were pretty nice, but it rained pretty much all day Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, it's been a very soggy last, week and a half. We got all, of course we were fortunate not to get all that rain in West Virginia that they got, but still been pretty soggy and stormy, and I hope we can kind of get through that over the next week or so. So, Max, let's jump right in it, man. We've got right. Quite a few things going on right now still. Again, about a month away, August 2nd will be the introductory press conference for Virginia Tech as far as getting back into fall camp and the season. It's a little less than a month away now, but still got a lot going on. The players all came back on campus this past weekend, 4th of July weekend. They were all back. I think everybody except Silas Zancy. He's the only one who did not make it in, and that was to be expected. We knew that he was a sign in place. He was never really going to be at Virginia Tech this fall. So he'll be at Fork Union this fall, but the rest of the group are back. I feel like it's almost like pitchers and catchers reporting, Max. Like, how big is that to hear that the guys are all back as far as football goes?
Well, the first thing it means is football's almost here. And that's probably the best thing that we can hear, early July is, the off season's almost over. So it's that first step in really getting ready for the season. I know that everyone, regardless of what school it is, wants to have that news that the season's almost here.
Yeah, I know the coaches all get back this weekend. I think a few of them are still out on vacation. I think they were all, given that vacation time through, Monday mornings when they all get back in town. But, we've still got camps, a couple of camps that we'll be covering here later on this month. And I know they're eager to get back into things. Of course, they can't really have contact. A lot of contact. They're very limited, obviously, right now in contact with the players. But players all working with the strength and conditioning staff. So kind of getting ready to really take off here very soon. So, Max, I know you and I have really kept our eye on, this is like watch list season. It's almost an everyday thing. Somebody gets announced in a watch list. So we have a lot of guys. Pretty much, if you were good last season, you're probably going to be on a watch list. So yes. Virginia Tech, obviously, only 7-6 finish overall. Obviously not a strong finish, but had a lot of good bright spots, and those bright spots are being recognized already. So let's go over some of the awards already, and I'll have you kind of give your thoughts. Joey Sly for the Lou Groza. Any surprise, as far as that goes?
He went 23-30 on field goals last season, and I believe 41 of 42 on extra points. So he definitely showed that he has the potential to make kicks when needed. Again, this is a watch list, and I would like to see him be a little bit more accurate from long range if he really wants to be in the running for it at the end of the year. But I'm not surprised at all with him being on the watch list.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. That long range I think he's got to improve on, but other than that, I think he's proven to be a pretty solid kicker. Eric Gallo for the Remington Award. Top, was it offensive line, I believe?
Top center.
Top center. Gallo's pretty much been one of the most important guys on that team because they just don't have any depth at center and haven't. So I'd say that's a pretty good pick. It's still early, but pretty good pick for Gallo.
I have to agree. He's shown that he has the durability to last at center. He played all 13 games last season, and he did relatively well at the position, especially one that doesn't have a lot of depth, as you said. So I'm not surprised at all with him being on that watch list.
Kind of going through Bucky Hodges for the Mackey Award, top tight end. I don't think any surprise there. Of course, again, it's one of those things that we still, we have to call him something. So we give Bucky Hodges that label for a tight end. I don't know if the guy's a true tight end, but he's up for the top tight end award with the Mackey.
Yeah, no surprise at all with him. I mean, he's more of a enormous wide receiver than a tight end. I think he's proven that he's almost impossible to defend with his height, his athleticism. He can make extremely hard catches. I would not be surprised at all if he's in the running at the end of the season for this award, because I think everyone has that expectation from him at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I'm really interested to see, as I think everybody else is, just how he fits into this new offense that doesn't really quite use a true tight end. They use want some versatility, and obviously for a guy like Hodges, he's somebody that can go deep. I mean, there's not a lot of tight ends that'll be running down the field, so he definitely spreads the field quite a bit. Chuck Clark up for the Bednarik Award. What do you think about Chuck?
I'm not surprised with that. Last season he was one of the best defenders in the secondary for Virginia Tech, so I'm not surprised, especially with Bud Foster as being consistently one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. I'm not surprised at all with a defensive player being on a watch list. So no surprise with Clark.
Yeah, I mean, the defense I feel like struggled at times last year, but Chuck Clark, I mean, the dude had 107 tackles. I think he was like 30, 35 more than the next closest guy for Virginia Tech. So he was pretty much everywhere they needed him to be last year. I mean, he was constantly up there. So, yeah, I'm not surprised at all to see him up there, even just from the amount of tackles that he had. And the last but not least, Isaiah Ford and Trayvon McMillan, Maxwell Award, top player in college football. It's always kind of a weird, everybody thinks the Heisman, and the Heisman incorporates a lot of that, but the Maxwell also goes to the top player in college football. So, yeah, I think a couple 1,000-yard players right there. No surprise with either one of those guys.
Yeah, none at all. I mean, Ford, he has the potential to be one of the best wide receivers in the entire country. So I'm not surprised with him being on that list. And McMillan, he pretty much came out of nowhere last season for a 1,000-yard rushing year. And I'm not surprised with him having over 1,000 yards to be on a watch list for a Player of the Year award.
Yeah, and, honestly, Max, I mean, there's going to be a lot more awards given out. I think it's usually, I guess, about a 2-week period here, going into media day and everything. And, yeah, I think there's going to be a few more awards given out. We may have one today that after we post this podcast. So we'll be having, I know, plenty more to talk about here on the board and everything else. I know you've been doing a good job in keeping up with everybody. It's a lot of awards being handed out right now. So a few of those to keep up with. Do want to talk about, too, it did come out this week, the first, I guess, betting line for the Battle of Bristol came out of Vegas. Virginia Tech is an 11-point underdog. I don't know, Max. I know we'll get more into this as we get closer to game time, and I'm sure that spread will change, but I'm not really surprised. Honestly, I thought that's about what I thought. I was expecting like 10 points. So, I don't know. What do you think about 11-point spread?
I was expecting 10 as well, mostly due to the uncertainty of the Virginia Tech team right now. I mean, it's a new head coach. It's a whole new system. No one's ever seen Virginia Tech run something like this before. And then on top of all that uncertainty, you have a quarterback that you don't know who's going to play. So I am not surprised at all that it was more than 10 points. It realistically could have been 14. And I don't think anyone really could have been that surprised. Now, once we find out who's starting at quarterback and they have the first game of the season against Liberty, I feel like that line is going to move some. And if Virginia Tech plays well in that first game and shows a capability to run this new system well, I wouldn't be surprised if it moved to a 7-point, spread for Bristol.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 10 points about what I expected. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. There are a lot of unknowns with this team. There's a lot of unknowns, even just how Bud Foster and that defense are going to mesh with Justin Fuente and the offense. Yeah, you've got, I guess, really only two certain top receivers right now, and you're talking about an offense that wants to run a lot more. True freshmen, how are those guys going to figure in? Can McMillan keep it up? Was that a one-year thing? There's definitely a lot of unknowns, and I think you're right. I still think Gerard Evans is the guy at quarterback. I know they're keeping that battle going through fall camp, and I think that's probably a good thing just for the two of those guys, just to not be complacent and feel like you still have to put everything on the line every day. And I think hopefully, I think that's the thought, is to push them a little more in fall camp. But I expect Gerard Evans big time to come out of that thing. And I think 7 points. I could see it getting down. I still think it's going to go off at probably about maybe 9 points. You think it gets under 10? Right, maybe before kickoff.
If Virginia Tech plays well in their first game, I could see this being under 10. But a lot of it's just, if they only win by 14, 21 in that first game, it could go up that spread, and I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Tennessee is good this year. That team's probably going to win the SEC East. I would guess they're going to be picked to win the East. Yeah. You've got a few other schools. I think Florida's down a little bit. Georgia's not quite what they have been. South Carolina's down. So, I'd expect Tennessee to probably win the SEC East. Got a lot coming back from a team that finished pretty well last year. So, we'll be interesting to see how that line holds.
Yeah, Tennessee, everyone keeps saying, this is Tennessee's year. This has the potential to actually be that year for Tennessee. And they're looking really good this season.
Yeah, Tennessee's one of those groups. Just like, it's a lot of other big fan bases. They definitely think this is the year, and it's been quite a while now since it's been their year. But, yeah, I think they've set themselves up pretty well this year. So we'll definitely see how that line goes up, goes down. It'll definitely change going into kickoff.
It'll definitely be fluid.
Yes, definitely be fluid. Recruiting wise, it's definitely recruiting is obviously year round, Max, as you have really come to know. But this week we had a few big announcements or big kind of storylines this week. Taiwan on the football side, Taiwan Garbett, Scout 300 defensive end, decommitted on Wednesday. I was kind of surprised to hear that. I know there's been a lot of rumblings on how involved his coach is in pushing him away from that. I still don't think he's the one that's pushed him away from that. I know I was asked that the other day, and I flat out said I think he's having a role, obviously, but I don't think he's the one pushing. I don't think he's trying to push him anywhere else. But Georgia, Florida, Pittsburgh sound like probably the three really looking at, which is interesting because you've got two former Virginia Tech assistant coaches at Florida, at Georgia, Torian Gray, Shane Beamer. But I don't know. What do you think about Taiwan Garbett, and how much are you really kind of putting into him decommitting right now? It's July.
There's a while to go. There really is. When he decommitted, it was just a verbal, obviously. He said that Virginia Tech was still his leader after that, and he said he would have felt funny taking official visits elsewhere if he was committed to another school. So I do understand that. Clearly, Virginia Tech should not let up in the recruiting on him because it's clearly far from over. But I don't think it should cause unnecessary stress on anyone at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those that Virginia Tech they have to stay on him. They have to get him back on campus. I think they're trying to get him back on the 23rd for the cookout that I know they've planned. A lot of top guys coming in for that. And we'll see if he stays around for the camp on the next day or anything. But will be interesting to see how they stay on him. I think he still ends up at Virginia Tech, but they do have some work to do, and they can't let up on him. At the same time, Kalen LeBourne, who's been a big-time running back, he's one of the best in the country, obviously one of the best in the state. Another 7'5" guy. He'll be over at Bishop Sullivan this fall. But he has said he's going to make his announcement tomorrow. So, everything I'm hearing, Max, I've heard Florida State for months, and I don't think that's really changed too much. He was down there for the spring game. He's made some visits down there. Of course, he's been to Virginia Tech also. Was at Frank Beamer's final game, and I believe he was there for the Ohio State game. So he's made a lot of trips to Virginia Tech too. But I don't know. What do you think at this point? I still don't think either way. I think it's not over. I think he's still going to take visits and keep looking around.
I'd have to agree. He regardless of what school he says tomorrow, he's going to visit his top three officially. I have no doubt about that, and that's Florida State, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina, I believe. So I have no doubt that he's going to visit those three schools. And Florida State was a school that was for a long time considered to be a lock for him, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say they're not a lock at this point, but it's certainly other schools have come into the picture like Virginia Tech. So I wouldn't be surprised if he verbal to any one of those three schools and potentially change his commitment later on because he's going to take officials elsewhere.
Yeah, North Carolina, Auburn, I think have kind of been jostling for position back there. It is interesting to kind of keep in mind. Of course, this hasn't changed. I mean, he's been committed since February, but Florida State already has a big time 4-star running back, Saquandre White. He's been committed since February. That hasn't changed. Kalen LeBourne's thoughts on them. I mean, obviously he went to the spring. He's been, I think, 2 visits at least since that commitment. So I don't think that's going to affect him. I think a lot of people at first thought, oh, they've already got a running back. He may not go there, but I think he feels like he can win out wherever he goes. But yeah, I do think it's gonna. He's just his personality. He likes the attention, but I think it's also one of those that he's just. I can see him kind of going back and forth. I don't think he's gonna be set wherever he picks tomorrow.
I mean, a lot of guys are like that, though. I mean, they say one thing, then they think about it a bit more, and like, well, maybe something else would be a better fit for me. I mean, I know I didn't play football coming out of high school, but I had that same thought process when I was looking at colleges. So It's just natural for a 17, 18-year-old kid to have a change of mind, and I don't think that people should look too much into that at this point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. These are kids, and I think that gets lost on a lot of people a lot of times, and they change their minds. That's just something that happens. But Max, I did want to mention too. I know you said you have an update on one of Virginia Tech's solid commitments right now, Drake DeEulis. Tell us what's going on there. Kind of what's the latest with his health and his situation.
Back in early June, I reported that he had sustained a broken wrist at an opening camp, and he didn't know it at the time, and he was kept lifting and all that stuff on it, and made it, well, quite honestly, a little bit worse by doing that. But he had surgery on it on July 1st, and he told me that the surgery went well, but he has to meet with the surgeon again sometime next week before he gets a full, recovery time frame. But he will obviously make a full recovery from it. It's just a matter of when he's able to start lifting and taking part in football activities once again. But I'll have more information on that next week after he meets with the surgeon.
Yeah, I know. For anybody who's not a subscriber to our site, I know Max has been steady contact with Drake, and he's been reporting quite a bit on him. So I know he'll be reporting more on Drake and kind of where everything stands in our premium message board. So definitely check that out. Basketball-wise, Max, I just got back. I've been at the Under Armour All-American Camp, the Peach Jam. It's actually still going on, but wanted to at least go down and get a peek, look at some Virginia Tech guys. Lots going on. I don't know how much you kept up with some basketball stuff, Max, but Virginia Tech's making a very good push at some guys down there. Buzz Williams, Steve Roccaforte, Jamie McNeely, they've all been out, been very active. Watching some of these guys, I got a chance to see Nickel Alexander-Walker. And that kid is legit. I mean, that is I think he's even way ahead of what I thought he was the last time I saw him. This is the first time I've seen him actively, I guess, this year. I saw him last year. He's become so much more of a scorer, and I think when he committed, I think I said he was going to be a good number 2. That's a kid who could be a number 1. He's a guy that I think could carry a team, and I think probably a top 50 kid. I know he's bumped up a little bit in scouts rankings up to 68. I think he's more of a top 50. Based on what I saw at Under Armour. But I don't know. From anything you've seen and heard, Max, I guess, what do you think about, Virginia Tech basketball recruiting as it sits right now?
I mean, getting Alexander Walker is a huge pickup. I mean, and I talked to his coach a couple months ago, and he was, obviously big on him. And he looked good in the film that I watched, but he's a kid that, as you said, is going to be really good. I think Scout has him at 70 right now from looking at his profile. I agree. He should be higher than that. He's looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's just gotten so much better from when I saw him last. I mean, I thought he was good when I saw him last, but he's gotten so much better even from that time. So I think he's definitely improved. He's really put a lot into his game. Yeah, he's at 70. You're right, Max. So yeah, I think he's got lots of upside. I think Virginia Tech got a huge commit with that kid who's still working on a lot of guys. He talked about Raquan Gray. Between him and Najee Marshall, that seems to be probably two of their top guys right now. I mean, I know he had two assistant coaches, McNeely, Rockefort, there on Wednesday. Buzz was there yesterday to see those guys, and Nikel. So that seems to be a really good core of guys, and it'll be interesting to see. Even over the next few weeks, you've got 3 weeks now of open evaluation period. They can't, contact these kids on the court, and see them there, but there'll be a lot of offers going out. So I'd expect a lot of 2018 offers. We'll see if there's any more 2017s. I don't know how they feel about some of these guys. I feel like they feel pretty good about Najee Marshall and Raquan Gray. I know they'd like to get a point, so you're looking at least a 3-man class. Depending on how it shakes out, I guess you could possibly take 4, but I think they're trying to get at least 2 more for this class. And then 2018, they're looking at probably taking, 2. So, there's still some room to work with this group, and I think they've got a pretty good handle on what they want to do. But they're going to be seeing a lot of guys at between Peach Jam, Under Armour, and I didn't even get a chance to go see the Adidas Gauntlet, but I know there'll be quite a few guys there as well.
The job Buzz has done, particularly last season, I think really it has to resonate with these recruits. And they're going to see what he's done with Les, and then knowing that those top guys are coming in or could come in, they can really imagine and see the program turning around while they're there. And I have a feeling that will really help them in the recruiting process.
Yeah, and real quick, too, Max, I do want to kind of mention, too, that obviously there's still 2 more camps for Virginia Tech that we'll be covering July 17th, July 24th. And then there's the cookout that's closed, but there'll be lots of guys coming in for that on the 23rd, so expect plenty of information to come out of those camps. I do want to mention here before we get to shout-outs to kind of send us out, Max, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the Flex 21 stuff. I don't know, it's kind of interesting to see kind of the commissioners and some of the opinions on how much time student-athletes should be putting into their sport and how much they should be given rest. So some interesting stuff on Flex 21, but I guess what did you think just kind of overall about that?
Well, changes like this really don't surprise me right now because there have been a lot of
I think we lost Max.
For student athletes to get a stipend or be paid, and I feel like having these kinds of changes is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like these kinds of changes are a way for the commissioners to really curb the calls for student athletes to be paid or get a stipend, aside from what they currently get. So I'm not surprised at all to see something like this because they don't really want to have to take further action than this. So giving them more time off is a way for them, student athletes, to get a part-time job or something like that. It's just a way to give them more time off.
Yeah, it is interesting to see, and this obviously is not the end of it. There'll be plenty more that comes out of it, so we'll definitely have to kind of wait and see what the next step in all this is. But, Max, I do want to get to, we always finish up here with shout-outs, just kind of, could be anything Virginia Tech related or just, anything going on overall. But anything you want to get a shout to or anything, I don't know if you want to go first or you want me to go first. Anybody you can think of a shout-out, or do you need to think on it for a minute?
Give me a second to think on it. You can give the first one.
Okay. I'm going to give my shout-out to big Hulk. I like to call him Virginia Tech's Hulk, Nick Akery. He's been working with Virginia Tech for a couple years now, former Virginia Tech player. Kind of had his career cut short by injury, but if anybody's seen him, that guy, he looks like a professional wrestler. It's unbelievable how massive he is, how ripped he is. But this last week, he was named officially on staff. He's now an assistant strength and conditioning coach. So, just glad to see it. He's a really good guy, really smart guy. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. He's going to really be beneficial to the players, the football players, and I think he'll get them ready in a lot of ways. And obviously, I don't think anybody's going to be winning too many bench press contests against him, but I think he'll get a lot of these guys in shape. So Max, you got any ideas on who you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, I do.
Okay, go for
it. These guys don't get too much credit during the course of a football season, but really the entire success of an offense comes down to them, and that's the offensive line. And I'll give my shout out to Eric Gallo for being named to the Remington Trophy watch list. It's really paid off for, I know we talked about him a little bit earlier, but it's really not necessarily a culmination, but a recognition of the hard work that he's put in on an offensive line that's really been undermanned. And the whole time he's been at Virginia Tech. He started all 13 games last season and played a season high 87 snaps against North Carolina, which is a lot for a center. I mean, that's not an easy position to play. So hopefully he can keep up that work next season.
Yeah, he is down in the trenches. That's never an easy spot to do, and those guys a lot of times do get overlooked, and definitely valued part of our team. And obviously, kind of a little bit of a teaser, I guess, coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll be doing a staff 16 for 2016, so we'll be doing our top 16 most important guys for this year. We'll be voting on that as a staff and have a true staff ranking. So it'll be interesting to see. I know Eric Gallo will be pretty high on my list, but it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys are. But that'll do it for this week's podcast. I want to thank Max Esterhuizen for valiantly stepping in for Doug Bowman and Derek Hopkins. We hope to get those guys back next week, but I think we're in good hands if we ever have any issue. That Max is kind of the closer that we go to in the bullpen to pull him out for any kind of Scoutcast. So, Max, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so if everybody has any question or anything, you can always catch us in the message board. You can email me directly, but that'll do it for this week's podcast. I want to thank again Max Esterhuizen, and join us back here next week.